When you're thinking about financing your next deal, most people think I need to go down to Chase or Rocket Mortgage or Wells Fargo and go get my loan just like I got my loan on my house because I can get a 30-year fixed, the best rate. That's where I should go, okay? But I want to change your thinking today on I don't want to spend as much time with Chase and Rocket Mortgage and Wells Fargo and Bank of America. I want to spend my time with my local credit union down the street, my small bank, right? You guys can think of them. You guys probably know in your local market, like the little small banks. Some of them you've probably never been into, right? Because you don't have a bank account there, but you drive by them every day. Honestly, the smaller, the better. Because what I want to challenge you guys to do is I want you to go start talking to those banks. I want you to build relationships with these people. Because when you go into the big banks, they aren't gonna care who you are as much. I mean, their job is to act like they care about you. But at the end of the day, even if they do care, it really doesn't matter how much they care because they don't make any decisions. None of those decisions that branch at Chase or Wells Fargo is being made right there, right? They've got a little box they got to fit into. And if you don't fit in that box, your loan's not gonna get approved, okay? On the flip side, let's go down the street to the ICCUs, the Greater Alliance, Copper State Union, those banks. Let's go down to there and let's build a relationship with a small bank, with the local credit guy or the small business guy or the commercial lender, right? These are people who I would ask with. So the one task I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to give it to you right now, okay? Your challenge is going to be over the next week to go get a hold of 5 different banks. I want you to at least have phone calls with 5 different local banks, okay? And get to know what they're doing. Ask some questions, right? I'm gonna give you guys a couple hacks of one of the best things I've learned, everything I've learned in presenting to you and how I've gotten good at this is take a banker to lunch. That is a great way to build a relationship, just like anything else. You're gonna learn a ton and you're gonna be able to ask the questions that you're probably asking right now. And you can walk through your current financial situation. You can walk through the deals that you're potentially gonna bring to them, right? It is one of the best ways to network in this business. When I was really into this, I was doing it at least once a month, sometimes multiple times a week because I was wanting to meet these people. Now today, guys, I live in Houston. Most of my deal flow is up in Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota. My banks here in Texas aren't lending there, so I can't see them, but I am constantly talking to them, right? Getting to know them. Like literally yesterday, this week, I made several different reconnections with banks because I had all these deals, literally fix and flip deals where I'm gonna do it with no money down and I'm going to use a bank. It's an awesome strategy. But because I built these relationships, all I gotta do is call that bank and be like, hey, here's the deal. What financials do you need to get caught up on? And how do we go put this deal together? Okay, so I'm gonna challenge you guys to all go out there and make these connections with the small banks, all right? Let's move into what are these banks going to want to know? What are they gonna ask you for? Because you wanna separate yourself from all the other borrowers is come in organized and prepared. A lot of banks, if you don't build a relationship and you don't build credibility and you don't separate yourself, guess what? When things get busy, this is why loans get delayed, right? These guys are typically overworked. They've got multiple loans they gotta do. They don't have enough time. They're understaffed. So guess who's they're gonna work on? They're either gonna work on the ones that provide them the most money or the people they care about, right? So if you really want them to work your deal and stay on closing, this is going to be critical. And I'm telling you guys, if you don't already know this, like when you gotta close a really good deal and you gotta close on a timeline because your seller is at a pinch, if you don't have the right bank who can close on time, you will lose the deal, right? I've lost deals. I've actually gotten into a huge lawsuit before because my seller tried to back out on me because my bank was behind and they weren't ready to go and it delayed the whole deal. And my seller was like, we're done, we're not selling to you. I'm like, no, that's not how the contract works. It was a nightmare, right? Because the bank wasn't keeping up. So this is super, super important, guys. And I want you to look professional. So when you go down to the local bank, these are all the things they're gonna ask for. W-2, right? Having your W-2 pay stubs is going to be one of them. They're going to be curious about your W-2. A personal financial statement. Every single bank is going to ask for this. Everybody needs to have this organized. I will show you guys a little hack here in a second if I would keep up with mine. But the other big one is you grow and you have rental properties. They're going to ask for what's called an REO schedule, okay? REO schedule. So this stands for real estate owned schedule. When you're going down to get your mortgage for your house, they're typically just want to look at your W-2, your pay stubs, and they're going to pull your credit and look at all your liabilities, right? But if you don't own a bunch of rental properties, that's probably about as far as they're taking it. They're going to put you through the ringer. They're going to make you pull bank accounts, statements, and all that, right? You're going to jump through a lot of hoops. Now, a small bank, on the other hand, they're going to be more concerned about you and the property, but they're going to look at your portfolio. And as you guys grow, you're going to have rental properties, right? So a great way to keep track of all your rental properties And what I'm going to show you a little cool thing is I use my REO schedule to feed into my personal financial statement. Because if you're like me and you're constantly buying and selling, your picture is always changing, right? And I know not all of you guys are there, but I'm sure there's some of you guys who are doing deals that could be your one big takeaway is start organizing all your properties into REO schedule and keep it up to date. The other cool thing about this is it's actually another hack is this is a great way to track your net worth and see how you're progressing. Because if you're doing buy and holds, your bank account might not be getting bigger, but you're building assets and you can keep track of those assets and your equity and all that. All that I do it in my REO schedule, which then I use that to basically attach to when I send out my PFS to my lender. I actually just attach my REO schedule and it makes it a lot simpler. Have it ready, right? I'll show you guys again how I do this on my computer, but I just have a folder with all this stuff ready to go because they're going to ask for it. And if you have it ready, you're going to separate yourself from everyone else that they have to chase for these documents and remind them. Okay. I want you guys to stand out. Now let's think about the project. So you went in there, you're like, hey, here's all my financials, right? But they're gonna be like, all right, well, what do you want to do? What are you planning to do, right? Ashley put LLC docs, we'll add that here. Yep, they're gonna want your operating agreement, your articles. That's another thing, keep it all in a folder. But the other one is the project, right? They're gonna want, like, if you could bring them a full comprehensive plan for your project, how powerful do you think that would be, right? From your scope of work, your budget. I mean, you could even want to take a step further, like a CMA or the comps, or maybe we'll call that your underwriting. Okay. If you have all this stuff ready, one big one is the underwriting, right? Show the lender your underwriting. I'm just telling this from experience, guys. When I have gone in and shown them, because they're going to have to do their own underwriting, but when you can be like, hey, here's the underwriting I already did, it's just going to show your knowledge of what you're doing. And a lot of times you can make their job a lot easier and you're going to look way more credible. You're going to look way better than anyone else who they're working with. If you actually show and demonstrate that you've already underwrote this deal, and it's going to help your approval, right? And get more people on board. Here we go. I'll show you my little hack. Okay. So guys, one thing I do is I just have it on my desktop. I keep this because I get asked for this all the time. I have my business docs and then I just keep all my LLCs, right? Within each one of these, I'm going to have all my documents, right? From each whatever LLC and all these different documents, all these folders. Like I keep my PFS folder, my credit and PFS folder, right? I've got all my tax returns. Okay. I'm not going to open them, but you guys can see the structure and the organization, right? I've got every year. So if whatever they need, I can just quickly drag and drop that into an email and boom, it's ready to go, right? Because once you send this to like 10 different banks, you start to create some efficiency things. What I'm also going to show you guys is when you go to meet these small banks, you want to reach out to multiple banks. You don't want to just go talk to one, send them all your stuff and hope that that guy gets you approved. My recommendation would be 3 or 4, at least, I mean, honestly, 5 of them. And I try to work with multiple banks at once to where I've always got 4 or 5. Like guys, I probably have 15 different small banks that I work with across Wyoming, Montana, Texas, to where at any point, these banks, they always change. They're always changing leadership, management, and even what they're lending on. Sometimes they're looking for more commercial. Other times they're more looking for new constructions. Other times they only want to run on rentals, right? It all depends on the bank's strategy at the time. So you do not want to put all your eggs in one basket. Definitely diversify, talk to multiple banks. Let me go really quick too. I'll just share with you guys. I keep an REO schedule. All right, guys, I created this so you guys could kind of see how I've set mine up. This is one of the templates that was given to me. So I try to put all my properties, right? When I bought them, I also try to keep track of the financials, right? They're going to ask you for rents. They're going to ask you for your mortgage payment, your taxes, all that different stuff. And the cool thing about this is you can do a lot of calculations. So here's kind of all the different properties when you purchased it. These are the things the bank's going to want to know. And if you just keep track of it, I like keep tracking of it because I track my net worth this way. I also can track sort of my cash flow and my profitability, but this is some of the organization that I use. Okay. And again, I also use this to where a big part of this is it's got the as is market value and it's got your loan amount. So you can literally track your net worth and you can total that all up the bottom. And that's what your PFS, they're going to ask for all this information on your PFS. So basically, instead of having to go write out all 10 properties or whatever you own, you can just literally attach this document to your PFS and it's going to be a little hack and save you guys. Who's ready for the 5 C's? The 5 C's of lending. These are the 5 things that every lender is going to look at. So first one is, we'll talk about cash. They want to see cash in the bank, cash reserves, cash for down payments, cash for a rainy day. One rule of thumb, which you guys can write down, right, is 10%, typically a bank, this is going to be hard for us real estate investors to be sitting idle on cash because we want to keep that money moving, right? But they typically would like to see 10% of your, whatever you have in liabilities, and these could be bank loans, whatever you have out there. But if you've got, for example, $900,000 or $1 million of debt, and that could be in $3 million of property, right? But they want to see about 10% of your debt in cash, right? So if you have $1 million in debt, they want to see about 100,000 of cash, right? That's kind of an easy rule of thumb that a lot of banks have told me. So write that one down. Okay. So number one is cash. You want to have cash reserves. Collateral, right? If they're going to lend to you, they're going to want to see some collateral. There's not too many of you guys are going to get unsecured loans. The only way we're getting an unsecured loan is these 0% interest credit cards. That's how you get uncollateralized loans, okay? But when you go to a bank, 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time, it's going to be secured by an asset because the bank is going to want their collateral. Character, credibility, we could use both of them. It's actually the same one. This is such a big one that everyone underestimates. Your bank wants to know who they're investing in. Who are they lending their money out to? I'll never forget this story. It was a BRRRR strategy on this little duplex in Laramie, Wyoming. So my numbers were, I bought it for about 100,000. I was going to put 80,000 into it. And this thing had appraised for about 240 after it was all done. So I was going to be able to get all my cash out, basically do the BRRRR strategy, have this great cash flowing property. And I actually went to a small bank. I got the loan done. But when we started the rehab, we pulled off all the sheetrock, right? And once we did all that, we got the city out there and they're like, this house is condemned. The framing is done so poorly on this property. You are not allowed to rehab it. You got to tear it down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that my $80,000 is not going to pay for a new house. Not even close, right? So what I had to do, it was one of the hardest calls I ever had to make. I had to call my local bank and his name was Kent. I'm like, Kent, I was scared to death to make this call. We got a problem. So the city says we got to tear this house down, but I had a plan, right? But I'm like, Kent, this is what I want to do. I want to tear it down. I want to build a 3-unit or a duplex. And if we're going to do this right, I'm going to be able to get more rents. It's going to be a nicer property, but we're going to have to redo all this loan. And fortunately, Kent didn't know me too well at the time, but he had done a couple loans. We had done, I think this is our second or third loan together. He's like, you know what, Casey? Yeah, we're going to have to do that. And I want to finance you. I believe in you. And I think you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So fortunately, he was super helpful, super flexible, redid the whole loan so we could tear it down, build a new duplex, right? And I still own this property to this day. It's one of my favorite properties, but it was so scary because we had to change everything, right? And we had other hurdles. I had to pour 2 foundations on this house. We poured one in the middle of winter in Wyoming, and we had not the right contractor. And literally the city came out and wouldn't sign off on the foundations. So we had to re-pour. We had to pull out our brand new foundation, start again, re-pour it. But eventually we got this thing built. The reason I'm sharing this story is I will never, ever forget this conversation. I was sitting in the bank, Kent's office in Laramie, downtown, sitting up in his office. And we were just talking about future deals and recap. He's like, Casey, I want to tell you this. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing what you said you were going to do on this deal. He's like, most other people I know, and when they would have been faced with what you faced, they would have just walked away. They would have gave up, right? Especially after you poured 2 foundations, like they would have given up. And I had to go to the board of the bank and tell them, like I had to go repo your loan to them. And I was counting on you to do what you say we were going to do. And I was nervous because the whole deal changed, right? But he's like, but when we got this completed, he's like, that meant so much to me, meant so much to the bank and the board. He's like, this will forever, they will never forget this. So now anytime, Casey, when you come back to us and say, hey, I got another deal, or hey, I got something else, I'm just going to tell him, hey, yeah, that's Casey. Remember, Casey's the one didn't bail on us, right? He did what he's going to say, what he's going to do. He didn't just walk away. He made it right. Guys, that's why character is so important. Those are the times you got to show up and do it. And this doesn't only apply with banks, right? Think of how much this would apply with your private money lenders. Because how many people have heard stories of people just walking away when things get tough on a PML loan, right? I'm sure many people have heard that story, especially in this community. I know that was a longer tangent here on character, but it is probably the most important of the 5. Just like anything in the world, in business and life, you got to know who you could trust. And it's important to your banker. So guys, it's important you do what you say you're going to do and treat these people like you would treat family, right? Because if you do it, they're going to take care of you and you're going to build these relationships. And when you build them, I'm just telling you, when you build them, you have so much more opportunity, right? Now, I'll give you one last example, or like a relevant example from this week is when I've got 3 or 4 properties, my team just got under contract and I'm going to go fix and flip. And I need to go to a small bank instead of a private money lender because I built these relationships and they know my character and they know me and I've gone deep with them. Now it makes getting this approval process so much easier. And it allows me now to go borrow on these deals instead of going to a PML at 12, 15, maybe some of you guys are at like 20+%. I'm able to go to a bank and do a fix and flip at like 7 or 8% interest only, right? And I'm paying like 1 point. It's unbelievable terms you guys can get. I wanted to go deep on that because character is one of the biggest ones. All right. So we covered cash, we covered character, the collateral, all right, cash flow. Okay. They want to look at the property that you're buying. Is there cash flow? Obviously, rental properties, this is vital. If you're buying this, what is the cash flow? If it doesn't have cash flow, they're going to want to look at you, right? What is your income? What other money do you have coming in? How are you going to service this loan and this debt, right? They want to care about the cash flow, okay? The last one, Number 5, it is called condition. This could be the condition of the house, but more importantly, this is the market conditions, right? Banks are always going to be considering this, like what's going on in the market. You guys have probably seen different times when the bank is not lending because they're not sure. Like when COVID first hit, banks pulled back a little bit. In 2008, when the sky was falling, a lot of banks pulled back and were not lending money, okay? They got to know the temperature, what's going on in the market, right? So that's going to dictate what the bank is doing, or even growth in the area, right? If you're in an area that's rapidly growing and this bank really believes in it, those are favorable conditions. They're going to want to do more loans, and that is going to be a good situation for you. There you guys got it, the 5 C's. So we talked about the 5 C's. We talked about the different types of loans and what you want to look into. You guys want to dive into a little bit about the type of loans with a small bank? Because I want you guys to think about, everyone is probably used to their primary house that they bought in a mortgage, right? But there's other loan products out there that you can go do, okay? You can go do what's called a construction loan. So those deals I was telling you guys about where I'm doing the Revive method, or I'm doing a fix and flip, instead of going to a private money lender, and I bet a lot of you guys didn't even realize this is possible. You probably thought that if a house needs a big renovation and can't get traditional financing, that means I can't use a bank. I have to either use a hard money lender, private money lender, or my own money, right? But that's not true. You can go get a construction loan at a small bank or a credit union, right, that you have a relationship with, and go fix it up, right? Now, your first deal, you might not be able to go get a full teardown or a full gut job. A small bank that's never met you, they might not want to do that first deal with you. You might have to go do like a cosmetic rehab or flip, but it just depends, right? It just depends on your credit, the 5 C's, right? If you're hitting all the other 5 C's, they'll probably take a risk and do that deal with you. But you guys, construction loans are one of the best way to do these fix and flips. And you don't have to go to the hard money lender and pay 3 points, 15%, and have all that money. You can literally go buy through a small bank. Guys, this will blow your mind. I did this deal like 3 years ago where it was a duplex, and I needed to close in 10 days because this guy had a 1031 exchange and he was selling me at a pretty decent discount. He's like, Casey, I'm doing a 1031. If I can sell my house before I buy my next one, then I can actually 1031 this house. So if you can close in 10 days, then I'll basically discount the house 30 grand. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So most people would think I got 10 days. There's no way in heck I'm going to a bank. Well, guess what? Because I had relationships and I had a title company that could move pretty quick, I literally got off that phone. I called my small bank. I think her name was Carrie. I'm like, Carrie, I got a really good deal. It's going to cash flow, but we got to move quick, but it's a deal, right? What do you need from me? Could you close in 10 days? She's like, you know what? I could call and get a quick evaluation. And if the title work's ready, I think we can make it work. And I literally closed in 10 days through a bank, which I'm sure a lot of you guys, that's going to blow your mind. Like a lot of hard money lenders can't even close that fast. But again, it comes back to the relationships. It comes back to I was organized and sent her my work scope, sent her everything she needed. She had all my financials. Like she could move and work quickly. Right. And the other piece, which I wasn't going to mention today, but I think it's very, very important, is when you work with small banks, every bank is different. But for example, in Wyoming, if you're under, I think the threshold is like $400,000 purchase price, or I should say loan amount. If you're under a $400K loan, you don't have to go get a full appraisal, because often that's the limiting factor when it comes to time, is you got to wait for an appraiser. Well, what they do is they do like a CMA or a desktop evaluation, and they can just get an agent to basically go give them a quick value on paper and not do a full appraisal. And those things can be turned around within a week. And that could be a big, big difference when you're trying to go do a fix-em, right? Now you don't have to go to the hard money lender and pay all the points and all the fees. You can just go to a small bank. So we talked about construction loans. Another option is portfolio loans. So if you guys are really wanting to scale your rental portfolio, and well, let me ask that. Who out there actually dreams of having enough passive income from their rental properties that they don't have to do anything. They just get to have that mailbox money. So to do that, you're not going to be able to go to Chase, Wells Fargo. There are what we call secondary market loans. So most banks, when you go to them and you get a mortgage, they're going to go sell that on the secondary market. So that's why they got to fit you into this little box, and you got to check all these boxes and give them all this documentation and jump through all these hoops, right? If you guys have ever done a mortgage, it's very difficult. But if you've done your second or third mortgage, it's even more difficult. And here's the thing, you're capped on 10 loans. But what I've learned is after you get past like 4, it becomes very, very difficult for these banks to even understand what you're doing. Because again, these big banks and mortgage companies, they don't understand this big, long personal financial statement and REO schedule. They don't understand that what's your business and what you're doing. And especially they don't understand creative finance, right? They're not going to be able to underwrite you, and you're probably not going to get approved. Okay. So at some point, you've got to go find a small bank to be able to go pass rental property 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up. So that's why you start now. You start building these relationships. And what you can do is it's called a portfolio loan, right? Now, these small banks and credit unions, they will hold that loan on their books. They don't have to go sell it on the secondary market. Therefore, they can use a little bit more discretion. I don't have a W-2 and the mortgage won't lend to me. Well, here's where you could get started is you got to go talk to a portfolio bank or potentially DSCR, which I'm going to get to. And those people are just going to go look at, they're going to focus more on the property than just you as the borrower, right? Because you can't do that with a mortgage, right? They have to underwrite you. It's not a rental property. It's not cash flowing, right? But when you're buying rental properties, if you go to a small bank or credit union, they will look at the asset more based on the asset itself. They're still going to look at you, right? But and make sure you have decent credit and a job. But as you get more experience and as you find better relationships and better banks, you can find them that will purely underwrite the deal based on the cash flow from that property, right? So that kind of segues us into DSCR. DSCR is another extreme to where literally those loans are underwritten purely based on the cash flow of the property, right? DSCR is a debt service coverage ratio loan. Okay. You don't have to have, it's every lender's a little bit different, but a lot of times DSCR lenders don't care about your W-2. They don't care about your tax rate. Pull your credit, make sure you have been paying your bills and you don't have a 500 credit score. But if you have a decent credit score and the property has income potential, then they'll lend to you purely based on that. So that's one really good way to get deals done and not have credit. Okay. So we talked about construction loans, portfolio loans, which are more for buy and holds, right? We talked about DSCR loans, the HELOCs. You can go to these small banks. They're the ones that are going to get you the good HELOC. If you want to get good terms on a HELOC on an investment property, you're going to want to go to the small banks. Okay. Case in point, guys, I've owned quite a few properties with this one bank not that long actually, but I've got like 5 properties in an area that's been appreciating. And it's been about 3 years since I financed them. And I'm like thinking, hey, I got some equity. I would love to borrow a little bit more money at 7% versus just basically using my fund at 12% or borrowing from a PML at even higher than that. So why don't I go borrow a little bit there? So what I do is I go to that small bank and be like, hey, you've already got all these loans in first position. Would you give me a line of credit HELOC in second position on those properties? And I'm actually going to see if she can cross collateralize it because the same bank has like 5 properties. So I'm literally just asked her in an email this week. I'm like, do you mind doing your quick little evaluation? See if we could get a little bit more of a line of credit on these different properties. Okay. Now, again, this would not work with a big bank. This is only going to work with small credit unions and small banks, small local banks. Okay. So quick tip is banks are going to look at so especially a DSCR loan, they're going to look at the DTI or the debt service coverage ratio of the property. So they typically want to see around 1.25 or greater. I've seen some banks go a little bit lower, but that calculation is simply what is the total amount of income coming in on the property and what is the total debt service on it, including the loan, taxes, utilities, all the expenses, right? What is the expenses? So basically the income coming in divided by the expenses. So if it's 1, that means that you're breaking even, not making any money. Most banks are not going to do it based on a 1, but if you're 1.25, now you've got a little bit of margin, a little bit of cushion, and that's how you can get approved for a DSCR loan because you've got a little bit of cushion. Therefore, they're basically giving you a loan based on the cash flow of the property. So that's a good little hack on DTI. My other little metric I gave you guys was the 10% having liquidity. Be one reason you can't get approved is you don't have enough cash sitting around, right? And they want you to season it, right? Has anybody ever been asked that by the bank? Like, we need to see money seasoned in the bank account, right? You can't just go get a loan from your parents or your buddy. Like, you got to have the money sitting in the bank account, right? So liquidity could be one. Well, here's what I would say. Solution 1, go talk to a small bank or local credit union. They're going to be one of the best ways you can mitigate against some of this. And they're going to look more at the property and more based on the relationship. Okay. Another big one is a cosigner. And this could be a great way. Some of you guys who have good credit can go in and participate on a deal is be a cosigner. Guys, I even had to do this. I bought my first property ever in 2010. I was 22 years old, right? But the way I did it was the bank wasn't going to give me a loan. This college kid that was making like $1,100 stipend is what I got from the university every week to go to grad school. That was not enough to qualify for a loan, but my dad was able to co-sign, right? So a lot of you guys, this might be your first thing you need to do to get your first deal done and build that track record with the banks is get a cosigner, right? But go to a small bank and do it. Because that way that bank gets to see you perform, gets to see you build that character and integrity. They're going to know that you make your payments on time, you communicate. So that's a great way to do it is get a cosigner. Okay. The other great way is seller finance. As you guys know, if you're trying to take down deals and you just don't have credit, a great way to do it, as we all know, is seller finance. It's a great way to still structure deals and get deals done. Okay. So we talked about getting a cosigner. We also talked about finding the right loan product and doing like a DSCR loan. Track record. Again, guys, it's about partnering up. It's the same thing with a cosigner. You just might need to have a partner on a deal to come in on it with you. Guys, even at my level, when I bought my 66 unit, I bought it about 2 years ago. I was literally exactly 2 years ago. I was having a conversation with my bank, my small bank, who I've got a relationship with, I've done deals with, and I've got this awesome multifamily that I'm basically going to do the burst strategy where I'm buying it at a big discount, rehabbing it, going to be able to refinance, and it's going to be a great asset. And it is today. But my bank goes, Casey, we don't do speculative investments, or we don't do speculative real estate. The bank's not very fond of speculative real estate. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what is the difference between this and the little single family house that you've been doing like the last 10 deals with me? Like, there's no difference. It's way bigger, but it's the same fundamentals. But here's the thing. I didn't have the balance sheet, right? I didn't have the balance sheet to go take out a $2.1 million loan. At that point in my investing career, I didn't have that. So guess what I had to do, guys? I had to go get a cosigner, right? I had to have my partner who had a bigger balance sheet had to co-sign on with me. But now I've been making payments, and now I've done a bigger, larger deal. So when I went to do my next big, larger multifamily deal, I didn't have to, because now I had a track record, right? I had a bigger balance sheet. It's the same thing I'm doing literally today. I've got an offer. I've got a meeting this afternoon to work through the final little pieces of this, because it's a creative deal where we're buying a 120 unit multifamily for like it's almost $16 million purchase price up in Wyoming. Anyway, to do this deal, I'm not going to get qualified for a $16 million loan right now, okay? Even where I'm at. So I'm using partners to come in and they're partnering with me, right? They've got bigger balance sheet. I'm actually working with it's an oil and gas royalties family office that I'm partnering with to get this bigger deal done. So my point is, guys, there's different levels. Everybody's on a different level. But if you are unable to go get a bank loan done in a small bank, I encourage you, go find a partner, right? Leverage this community. Who out there has good credit, maybe doesn't have time to go find a deal and would love to leverage their credit score and or their W-2 income to partner? There's people out there who have the credit, they just can't find the deals. I think that would be a super cool relationship and way to do business for you guys. You're going to kill two birds with one stone there. You're going to get two people partnering. Both partners are now going to get experience with a small bank. The one partner who doesn't have a deal, they're going to be able to add a deal to their track record, but they've got credit. The other partner who doesn't have credit, now they're going to build more credit and they're going to get to go do a deal. That's such a cool way to do this, guys. One last thing on that. If you guys want to get onto our fractional offering, that's another great way for you guys to build a track record, right? We're going to be working with small banks. Guess what? Our goal is to do about 25 deals over the next 2 years, fix and flips. A lot of these, we're going to use small banks, and I do got to check, because sometimes small banks, they don't like, if you guys know about fractional, it's everyone has a vote. Everyone is an owner, which is super great when you're doing 0% interest credit cards and building track record. I don't know. Fractional actually mentioned this to me. I was not planning to go in here, but fractional is like, it's a little bit difficult for you to get approved for loans in the fractional LLC, because you've got you might have 50 or 100 different partners, right? But typically banks, there's a certain percentage banks, if you're less than this percentage ownership, then you don't have to sign documents. So if you're 19% or less, typically the bank won't make you sign on it, right? But if you're over 20% or greater, they want anybody who's over 20%, they're going to make them sign on the documents, okay? So if you got a bunch of partners, that could be a little bit more cumbersome. The problem with the fractional deal is we're going to have 50 different partners. I actually have not presented that to my bank yet, but my workaround, if it doesn't work, is we can actually partner with one of my other LLCs. But ideally, we actually do the deal through a small bank, so everybody else starts to be able to build those relationships out, right? Regardless, you're going to get the track record. You're going to be able to say, hey, I participated on this deal. I was a part owner. Check out the numbers. Because here's the hack, guys. Whether you do this with me in our fractional fund or whether you do it with somebody else in this community, but if you go do that deal, no matter what your ownership percentage is, you're going to document it, right? You're going to keep track of your track record. This is one of the most powerful things I have that I'm able to share with my private money lenders, and I'm able to share with my banks, right? So I have my track record. So this sheet has about 125 deals that I've done, right? And I put in photos, I put in where I bought it, I put what I bought it for. This has links to settlement statements. This is super detailed. But people who are doing due diligence, whether it's a private money lender or a bank, they want to see this, right? Literally, I've got my settlement statements from all these different deals. It's all put into here, okay? But obviously, guys, some of these go back to 2023, 2021. I've got some here at the bottom I bought in 2017, right? Some of these are older properties that I bought years and years ago, okay? Some of you guys might be thinking, I don't have that track record. I haven't been doing this for 10 years, Casey. But here's the thing. You're going to build this out, right? And my point was in making this is go find a partner or jump in on our fractional fund and go do deals with people. And every deal you do, start a Google sheet or a spreadsheet and list all the property info, right? And start doing that. And this is a live document you're going to have for the rest of your life. And as you build your career, you're going to have this, you're going to build to it. And before you know it, you're going to have all these deals in here. And when you go talk to your next partner, or you talk to your next lender, or your next small bank or hard money guy, whoever you're talking to that you need buy-in from,
you're going to be able to go show them that track record and you're going to build it out. So guys, it's all about collaborating. You guys know this already, but I want to encourage you, if you haven't done a deal yet, go find somebody to partner with and build that track record, because that's how you get the reps and the credibility. Okay.